Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport is a major airport in the U.S. state of Alaska, located 4 nautical miles southwest of downtown Anchorage. The airport is named in honor of Ted Stevens, the U.S. Senator from Alaska serving from 1968 to 2009. It is included in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, which categorized it as a primary commercial service airport. History: built in 1951 as Anchorage International Airport, the airport was served in the 1950s by Alaska Airlines, Northwest Orient, Pacific Northern Airlines and Revolution Airways, using aircraft ranging from Douglas DC-3s to Boeing 377s, and was also a refueling stop for Canadian Pacific Airlines service to the Far East. From 1955 to 2011, the eastern end of the airport's southernmost runway connected to the Cullis Air National Guard Base, which was located on land leased by the airport. Anchorage was a common stopover for passengers flying to East Asia until the late 1980s because Chinese and Soviet airspace were off-limits and because the first generation of jets and wide-body airliners did not have the range to fly non-stop across the Pacific Ocean. Carriers using Anchorage for this purpose included Northwest Orient, the first airline to operate scheduled trans-Pacific service after World War II, used Elmendorf Field and later Anchorage International as a stopover for service between U.S. points and Tokyo as late as the mid-1970s. Scandinavian Airlines began a transpolar flight from Copenhagen to Tokyo via Anchorage in 1957. Japan Airlines served Seattle through Anchorage in the early 1960s, and offered service through Anchorage to London, Paris, Amsterdam, Darwin Düsseldorf and other European cities from the 1960s until as late as 1987. Air France, British Airways, KLM, Lufthansa and Sabena all used Anchorage as a stopover point between Europe and Tokyo into the 1980s. Korean Air used Anchorage as a stopover point for flights between Seoul and both Europe and the continental US in the 1980s. On September 1, 1983, one of these flights, Korean Airlines Flight 007 was shot down by a Soviet pilot who had mistaken it for a spy plane, after unintentionally violating Soviet airspace. Most scheduled passenger service from Anchorage to Europe and Asia ceased in the early 1990s following the end of the Cold War. Korean Air continued to serve Anchorage on a scheduled basis until the early 2000s. China Airlines, the last Asian carrier to serve Anchorage on a regular basis, used Anchorage as an intermediate stop on its Taipei-New York route until 2011, when it rerouted these flights to stop in Osaka. While a few charter passenger aircraft still stop at Anchorage on flights between Asia and the eastern United States, scheduled cargo carriers which benefit from more volume and thus shorter route segments continue to use Anchorage frequently. In the 1990s, Alaska Airlines and Aeroflot operated service from Anchorage to several destinations in the Russian Far East, including Khabarovsk, Magadan, Petropavlovsk, Vladivostok and Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. Alaska Airlines pulled out of these markets in 1998 due to insufficient demand, while the Aeroflot services were primarily intended as technical stops en route to Seattle and San Francisco and were cancelled once newer aircraft and non-stop rights became available. Revolution Airways, Delavia and Mayville Magadan Airlines also offered service between Anchorage and the Russian Far East at various times, catering to Kamchatka oil exploration and other niche markets. The airport was renamed in 2000 by the Alaska legislature to honor then long-standing U.S. Senator Ted Stevens. Passenger traffic: Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport's passenger traffic has hovered around the 5 million mark for the last 10 years, apart from in 2002 when the airport suffered a 13% drop in traffic. Fairbanks and Juneau are the next busiest airports, though neither managed more than 500,000 passengers last year. Anchorage traffic peaks in June, July and August when passenger numbers are twice as high as between October and April. Most major U.S. passenger carriers serve ANC, with the majority of passenger flight operations by Alaska Airlines to and from Seattle and Fairbanks. Anchorage is also envisioned as a future connecting point for air traffic to the Russian Far East. During the summer season 2008, there was one weekly flight to Russia by Vladivostok Air. Yaksha Airlines resumed summer seasonal service to Russia in 2012. Many of Alaska's North Slope workers live either in Anchorage or elsewhere in the lower 48 states and fly through the airport to their jobs in Prudhoe Bay. As per Federal Aviation Administration records, the airport had 2,599,313 passenger boardings in calendar year 2008, 2,282,666 enplanements in 2009, and 2,342,310 in 2010. International Cargo Hub, Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport is also a major cargo hub. As of 2010, it ranked as the fifth busiest airport in the world by cargo traffic, after Hong Kong, Memphis, Shanghai, and Seoul. FedEx Express and UPS Airlines operate major hubs at Anchorage International for cargo heading to and from the Far East. NWA Cargo used to operate a major hub at the airport until December 28, 2009 when it closed all operations for Northwest Cargo at all airports. FedEx Express is the airport's largest cargo facility and can handle as many as 13,400 packages per hour, employing more than 1,200 people and providing a full customs clearance system. United Parcel Services hub handles about 5,000 parcels per hour. Both companies forecast a large growth in traffic over the next several years as trade with China and other Far East countries increases and plan to expand their Anchorage facilities comparatively. The United States Postal Service also operates a large sectional center facility for the 995XX zip codes. It processes mail and parcels headed to and from all Alaska cities. Facilities and aircraft. Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport covers an area of 4,608 acres at an elevation of 151 feet above mean sea level. It has 3 runways, 7L/25 is 10,600 by 150 feet with an asphalt surface. 7R/25L is 12,400 by 200 feet with an asphalt concrete surface. 15/33 is 10,960 by 150 feet with an asphalt surface. The airport also has one asphalt helipad that is 100 by 100 feet. For the 12-month period ending October 28, 2011, the airport had 289,472 aircraft operations, an average of 793 per day, 37% scheduled commercial, 35% general aviation, 27% air taxi, and 1% military. At that time there were 91 aircraft based at this airport, 60% multi-engine, 17% helicopter, 12% jet, 10% single-engine, and 1% glider. The FAA has forecast total operations for the year 2011 to be 261,375. By the year 2030 this number is expected to rise to 334,279 or 918.882 operations per day. Terminals. The South Terminal serves Air Canada, Alaska Airlines, American Airlines, Condor, Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines, JetBlue, Sun Country, United Airlines and Virgin America. All regional intrastate carriers also use the South Terminal. The terminal contains 3 concourses, Concourse A, Concourse B, and Concourse C. Concourse C was completely rebuilt in 2004 while Concourses A and B were built in 1985 and 1969 respectively and renovated in 2009. Architects HNTB and RIM Architects performed the architectural work for these projects. The North Terminal serves Condor, Japan Airlines, Korean Air, Icelandair, Yaksha Airlines, all international seasonal charter flights and military flights. In addition to these airlines, a few cargo airlines use the north side of the terminal for parking while their aircraft have small problems need maintenance for a day or so. This terminal was built in 1982. Airlines and Destinations. 50 destinations are accessible from ANC via direct flights, including destinations in 14 U.S. states and the countries of Canada, Germany, Iceland, and Russia. U.S. mainline carriers operate a combination of year-round and seasonal service to the lower 48 states and Hawaii. foreign carriers operate seasonal flights and seasonal charters to Asia and Europe, sold as bundled services. China Airlines terminated service to and from Taipei, due to availability of longer-range aircraft, compounded by $2.5 million levy by the TSA. Passenger cargo Statistics top airlines top destinations ground transport interterminal a shuttle bus runs approximately every 15 minutes between the north and south terminals and the employee and long-term parking lots. A landside interterminal walkway was completed in 2009. Airside connections between the sterile areas of each terminal are not available. To from airport Route 7A of the Anchorage People Mover bus system serves the airport's north and south terminals once every hour in each direction, connecting it with the Downtown Transit Center and the Dimon Center Mall. Taxi queues are available in front of each terminal. Courtesy vans and other ground transportation options pick up from designated areas in front of each terminal. Major national rental car chains are represented in an on-site consolidated rental car facility attached to the South Terminal. There is a rail station for the Alaska Railroad. It is only available during summer season for cruise ship service only. Renovations began on the A and B concourses in fall 2006. These renovations are designed to bring the older portions into compliance with current seismic, heating, ventilation, electrical and safety codes, and also include new baggage handling systems and renovations to the interior of the concourses. Since the completion of the construction, all domestic flights are operated out of the South Terminal. Commissioned art pieces, Euphony, 2004, glass artist Warren Carther. The piece consists of 9 towers of glass, collectively adding up to 42 meters of inspan and reaching to 8 meters at its highest point. The series of panels are inspired by Alaska's immensely rugged landscape of glaciers and mountains. The ambiguous images embedded within the sculpture address Alaska's continual balancing of the forces of technology with the vast powers of the natural world. Programs: the airport features an innovative customer service program, which partners with most on-site vendors and concessionaires and aims to promote a positive image of the airport and the state of Alaska in the minds of travelers. This volunteer, self-funded committee mystery shops at partnering companies and provides awards of cash, free covered parking, and donated prizes to winning employees. Accidents and incidents: on March 27, 1964, the airport's control tower, then attached to the main terminal, collapsed during the Good Friday earthquake. 1 person was killed. On October 1, 1970, Douglas A-4 D-6N-47 of the Federal Aviation Administration crashed shortly after takeoff and was destroyed in the subsequent fire. The aircraft was operating a local training flight. Both crew were killed. On November 27, 1970, Douglas DC-8-63 of Capital Airlines crashed on takeoff from Anchorage, killing 47 of 229 passengers and crew on board. On November 6, 1974, Douglas C-47N-76 of the Federal Aviation Administration along with Lockheed L-188 Electra N-7140C and NAMCYS-11AN-172 of Revolution Airways were destroyed in a hangar fire. On January 13, 1977, Japan Airlines Flight 8054, a McDonnell Douglas DC-8-62F, crashed shortly after takeoff with a cargo of live beef cattle for delivery to Tokyo, Japan. The 3 crew members and the 2 cargo handlers aboard the aircraft died in the crash and the aircraft was destroyed. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the probable cause of the accident was a stall that resulted from the pilot's control inputs aggravated by airframe icing while the pilot was under the influence of alcohol. On April 20, 1978, Korean Airlines Flight 902, a Boeing 707, was shot down by the Soviet Air Force while flying from Paris, France to Anchorage, Alaska and continuing to Seoul, South Korea. 2 passengers were killed in the explosive decompression and the flight was able to land on a frozen lake where the remaining passengers and crew were transported to safety and then flown out of the Soviet Union back to South Korea. On December 4, 1978, a Learjet 25C en route from Juneau crashed upon landing. On board were U.S. Senator Ted Stevens, his wife Ann, lobbyist and former Alaska Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development Langhorne A. Motley, prominent Anchorage lawyer Joseph Rudd, and 3 others. The party were traveling from the second-term inauguration of Alaska Governor Jay Hammond to an Anchorage fundraiser organized by Motley. Motley and Ted Stevens were the only survivors. On June 8, 1983, Revolution Airways Flight 8's propeller separated from the Lockheed L-188 Electra and tore a hole in the fuselage over the Pacific Ocean, causing an explosive decompression and loss of control. The pilots managed to land the aircraft safely at Anchorage and all 15 passengers and crew survived. Since the propeller fell into the sea, the cause of the separation is undetermined. On December 23, 1983, Korean Air Cargo Flight 084, a DC-10-30CF collided head-on with a Piper PA-31 Navajo while taxiing at the airport. All on board both aircraft survived. On March 31, 1993, a Boeing 747-121, Japan Airlines Flight 46E, operated by Evergreen International Airlines, departing Anchorage for Chicago, suffered a complete loss of the number 2 engine pylon at 2,000 feet after encountering extreme turbulence after takeoff. The aircraft then experienced an uncommanded left bank of approximately 50 degrees. The flight crew successfully landed the aircraft back at Anchorage International, to discover the number 2 engine and all of the leading edge of the wing between the number 1 and 2 engines had been torn away. On October 9, 2002, a Boeing 747-451, Northwest Airlines Flight 85 en route from Detroit to Tokyo, suffered a lower rudder hardover. While flying over the Bering Sea, the aircraft abruptly went into a 35 through 40 degree left bank after the lower rudder had swung left 17 a degree and hydraulic failure caused it to be stuck in place. Captain Frank Gabe and First Officer Mike Fagan were at the controls at the time, having just taken over from Senior Captain John Hanson and First Officer David Smith. Gabe declared an emergency and turned the aircraft back towards Anchorage. Hanson had returned to the cockpit and soon took over the controls. He and Fagan then flew the aircraft for over an hour before successfully landing in Anchorage. In order to steer the aircraft, they had to use asymmetric engine thrust, or varying input into the engines, as they were unable to use the ailerons at the time. No passengers or crew were injured, but the incident resulted in an airworthiness directive to prevent the possibility of a future accident. References. External links, media related to Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport at Wikimedia Commons, Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, Bureau of Transportation Statistics, FAA Terminal Area Forecast, FAA Airport Diagram, effective November 12, 2015, FAA Terminal Procedures for ANC, effective November 12, 2015. Resources for this airport: FAA Airport Information for ANC, AirNav Airport Information for PANC, ASN Accident History for ANC, FlightAware Airport Information and Live Flight Tracker, NOAA-NWS Latest Weather Observations for PANC, SkyVector Aeronautical Chart for ANC, check current FAA delays for this airport.